G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is chapter 9 of my What If Ash Met Meowth First series. In the last chapter, Brock gained a new member to his team in the form of Vulpix, and said goodbye to an old teammate, Mankey, now Primeape, to let it pursue its passion for fighting. At the power plant, Meowth got to show his mechanical skills, while Ash got to show his Pokemon know-how and compassion. During the adventure with the Diglett, Ash and Gary started to come to a kind of understanding, ending with Gary giving Ash an X-Transceiver to call him on if he ever got tangled up with crooks worse than Jesse James and Porygon. This is where the next chapter begins. Continuing on their way to the future gym, a group of heroes once again find themselves lost, until they stumble across a strange mansion. Deciding to stop and ask for directions, the group enter the mansion, where Misty soon discovers a secret door, much to everyone's shock. As Ash is helping Misty to her feet, they spot a Venonat in the hall. Ash guesses that it must belong to whoever lives in the mansion, and they follow after it, only for Ash to get shocked as he steps on a trapdoor Voltorb. I'm beginning to sense a pattern here. They continue through the mansion, this time with much more caution, until Ash finds himself falling through another false wall where throwing stars are sent his way. Thinking fast, Ash jumps out of the way, his reflexes much higher than his cannon self due to needing to dodge Meowth's claws on occasion. Hearing Ash's startled shout, the others rush through the false wall to find the ninja warrior Aya standing before them. She compliments Ash on his ability to dodge her attack, only for Ash to start chewing her out for attacking him in the first place. Aya says that it's their own fault for entering the mansion in the first place, as it was a training ground for ninja. Ash counters that there is no way they could have possibly known that, as they were lost and there was no sign or anything on the front entrance to act as a warning. Aya still brushes Ash off, saying that he and his friends aren't allowed to leave unless Ash beats her. Ash, who's now thoroughly ticked, is more than happy to oblige. Aya sends out her Venonat while Ash sends out Fearow. Ash attempts to get first hit with Fury Attack, only for Venonat to dodge and try hitting Fearow with her Sun Spore, which Ash tells Fearow to dodge with Agility. Ash thinks to himself that Aya must have trained Venonat's speed, so they needed an attack that couldn't miss. He calls for Fearow to hit Venonat with Aerial Ace, which knocks the Venonat out with one hit. As Aya is calling back her Venonat, Koga appears as in canon. When Koga introduces himself, he is mildly surprised that Ash doesn't react in shock or fear, but instead tells him that he seriously needs to start labeling the entrance and teach his sister not to attack lost people that just came in wanting directions. Was the kid lecturing him? Ash then says that both he and Misty were looking for the future gym anyway, so this was actually quite fortuitous. He turns to Misty and asks if she wants to go first. Misty declines, reminding Ash that he's still one badge behind her because of Erica's gym getting set on fire before his battle. Ash nods, then thinks about what he knows about Koga's gym. Koga uses poison Pokemon, and poison can be a real problem. So his best option was to start with Oddish. Sending out their Pokemon, Ash isn't at all surprised when Koga sends out a Venonat. After all, his sister has one. He is surprised, however, when it evolves into a Venomoth. When Venomoth attempts to hit Oddish with a Stun Spore, it narrowly dodges. Ash calls for Oddish to use Sweet Scent, which causes the Venomoth to become distracted by the smell. Spotting the opening, Ash has Oddish hit Venomoth with its own Stun Spore. Now with Venomoth having a hard time moving, it's easier for Oddish to avoid attacks and get its own. However, despite that, Oddish is still hit several times by Venomoth's Psybeam, causing it serious damage. However, with Venomoth's movement troubles and Oddish's moves of Mega Drain and Giga Drain, Oddish is just able to squeak a victory. Just as Ash is breathing a sigh of relief, Oddish evolves into Gloom, much to Ash's excitement. Knowing that Gloom is too tired to continue the battle, Ash calls it back and brings out Charmander. However, before Koga can bring out his Pokemon, Team Rocket crashes the party. Ash snaps at them, saying that they seriously have the worst timing and this is the second time they've interrupted one of his gym challenges. He happily agrees to join forces with Aya and Koga in order to ensure that they don't mess up another gym. When the Pokemon are covered in sticky thread and Misty's Psyduck breaks out of its Pokeball, Misty sighs tiredly and asks Ash what moves Psyduck even knows. Using his Pokedex, Ash finds Psyduck and begins to list off the moves it knows. He also stops Misty from making a move before she's heard all of the moves Psyduck knows. After hearing all of them, Misty calls for Psyduck to use Confusion and is shocked by how powerful it is, not only sending Team Rocket flying, but removing the sticky threads from the other Pokemon. Ash says that Psyduck has a lot of hidden potential. Misty agrees. Now that Team Rocket is no longer a problem, Koga moves their match outside so as to avoid any interference that could be caused by the damage Team Rocket did. Looking around, Ash notices that there's a garden pond, which will be good for Misty before bringing out Charmander. And since this matchup is the same as in canon, I'm going to skip it. With Ash now having earned his soul badge, he passes the baton over to Misty. Stepping up to the plate, Misty leads with Starmie, while Koga leads with Coughing. With Starmie being the more experienced and faster of the two, it is able to get the first hit with Psybeam. However, before Misty can get in another hit, Koga's Coughing explodes with self-destruct, knocking both Pokemon out. Now both down to 1, Koga sends out Muck while Misty brings out Horsey, which stares challengingly at Muck from the garden pond. Just like in the Power Plant episode, the Muck's stench immediately hits everyone's noses. In response, Misty tells Horsey to dive under the water to escape the smell. Koga responds by sending Muck after it, which is exactly what Misty wanted. Calling out to Horsey, she tells it to hit Muck with Dragon Breath, which makes a direct hit and paralyzes the Muck. Misty grins, explaining that Muck can't move very well in the water, and now that it's paralyzed, it'll be easier to hit. A few more Dragon Breaths and Misty claims victory. Congratulating both tweens on their victory, Koga presents each of them with a soul badge. Ash and Misty cheer, celebrating their shared success. Sometime later, the group finds themselves in a massive plain, where they see a herd of Tauros running across the plain in front of them. Ash is fascinated by the sight of the herd and is about to approach them when he is stopped by a Growlithe. With Meowth's help, the group find out that they've accidentally stumbled onto a Pokemon preserve. This is soon confirmed by Lara as she rides up to them on her Ponyta. Realizing their mistake, Ash apologizes on behalf of the group, explaining that not one of them has any sense of direction. Lara forgives them easily and begins to lead them to the ranch. On the way, she expresses surprise that none of them had tried throwing Pokeballs at the Tauros. To which Misty explains that she is a water-type specialist and catching Pokemon at random isn't Ash's style. He's more of a Pokemon adopter. When they arrive at the ranch, Lara explains how it works, and like in canon, they are soon approached by Dario. Once he leaves, after spouting his egotistical nonsense, Ash sighs and pinches the bridge of his nose, asking if everywhere they travel to is going to have a Gary. Not knowing what he's talking about, Lara asks Ash to explain what he means. Ash explains that Gary is a boy from his hometown who has a tendency to act like an entitled jerk. He glances down at the extransceiver around his wrist and amends that he wasn't quite as annoying the last time they met. Later, the incident with the Tauros happens, like in canon, only this time Ash is able to recognize the light that had spooked the Tauros and Ponyta as the move Flash. When Misty asks what that move is, Brock explains that it's a HM that's used to light up dark tunnels so people without any other light source can find their way. As such, it's a move that can be learnt by almost any Pokemon. Some even learn it naturally. An untraceable sabotage. At Lara's home, Ash volunteers to race in Lara's place. Someone was clearly trying to cheat their way to victory in this race, and he was not about to let that stand. Besides, Lara was already hurt, so that meant that the other racers were also in danger. Ponyta, who had already been drawn to Ash's calm and mature aura, easily agrees to let Ash ride it in the race. Brock and Misty also join in order to help. They spend the rest of the night formulating a plan, and the next day they're prepared for the race. As the race begins, the sabotage starts almost instantly, as two Pokemon begin fighting each other. Spotting the bickering Pokemon, Ash turns to Meowth, who's already leaping off of Ash's shoulder in order to calm the two Pokemon down and get them back in the race. With the Pokemon calmed, the one on the Tauros asks Meowth if he wants a ride back to his trainer, and Meowth jumps on. During the downhill run, when an Electrode and its trainer fall into a pitfall, Brock has Onix lift them out with its tail, putting them back in the race. By this point, the Nidorina and Tauros that had been fighting have caught up and delivered Meowth safely to Ash. They then come up to the river portion of the race, where Misty calls for the Pokemon that can't jump to follow her. Using Starmie's Icy Wind, she creates an ice bridge solid enough for the other Pokemon to follow her across, while the Pokemon that can jump across the stones do so. Thanks to the efforts of Ash and his friends, all of the teams make it to the food eating section of the race, where a desperate Dario calls out Team Rocket, revealing that he was the one behind the sabotage. His suspicions confirmed, Ash glares at Dario, taking back what he said about him being another Gary. Not even Gary deserved that insult. As Dario races on ahead, not allowing his dog trio to finish its food, and Team Rocket are preparing to fight, the other racers that Ash and his friends had helped tell Ash to go on ahead. They'll handle Team Rocket. He needs to make sure that Dario doesn't win the race. Nodding in understanding, his eyes burning with determination, Ash goes after Dario, with Ponyta having finished its whole meal. After this, things go like in canon, with Ponyta evolving into Rapidash and winning the race. This time, however, as all the other racers had also been present to witness Dario's sabotage, they are able to expose Dario to everyone there. With Dario's actions now exposed, he is run out of town. With the matter now settled, Ash and his friends continue on, only to soon become lost once more in the middle of a jungle. Sighing again, Ash attempts to approach a Chansey in order to have Meowth ask it for directions, only for it to be an Officer Jenny wearing a Chansey hat. After explaining the situation to her, Jenny takes them to a camp where they can look over her maps and get their bearings. While there, Jenny gets an alert that there are poachers in the savannah section of the preserve. Wanting to help, Ash and co join her. They arrive just in time to see Team Rocket firing a rocket to scare the Kangaskhan into a stampede, forcing Jenny to throw the Jeep into reverse in an attempt to get away. Thinking fast, Ash calls out Gloom and tells it to use Sweet Scent. The scent does its job, calming the Kangaskhan and stopping their stampede. However, just as they're about to breathe a sigh of relief, Team Rocket trap the Kangaskhan in a net. Not waiting for Jenny to get the Jeep working again, Ash jumps out of the Jeep with Meowth and Pikachu close behind. Rushing up to the Kangaskhan, Ash tells Meowth to cut the ropes with Fury Swipe, while he and Pikachu try to drag the cut net off of the Kangaskhan. Just as Team Rocket are about to try and stop them, they are stopped by a small boy with a boomerang. Once the Kangaskhan are free, the boy orders them to attack Team Rocket, which they happily do, knocking them into the sky with their tails. Once the battle is over, the little boy approaches Ash, who gives him a friendly hello. Grinning broadly, the boy grabs Ash's hand and drags him, along with Meowth and Pikachu, over to the Kangaskhan. Before Jenny, Misty, or Brock can do anything, Ash and his Pokemon are lifted onto the shoulders of the Kangaskhan and carried away. Just as the Kangaskhan vanish from sight, just like in canon, Tommy's mother and father show up and explain to Ash's friends about how they'd lost their son. And, like in canon, his friends offer to help. Meanwhile with Ash, he is getting to know the young boy who calls himself Tombo. Due to Ash and his Pokemon's courage in protecting the Kangaskhan, Tombo has taken to calling him brother. With Meowth's help, Ash learns about how the Kangaskhan found Tombo alone entangled in a tree. It is at this point that they find out about the missing Kangaskhan baby, and Ash offers to help Tombo look for it. This is when the two groups meet up, this time without Brock getting attacked. When Tommy's parents try to remind their son of who they are, Ash is thoroughly confused, so Misty explains the situation. When Tommy's father hits Tombo with a stick, Ash immediately kicks him into a bush before asking the mother why she married him. When Tombo comes to and recognizes his mom, Misty guesses that the blow to his head must have dislodged a memory. I don't think that's how that works, but okay. While Tommy struggles with the idea that he has two mothers and one of them wants to take him somewhere he doesn't know, Ash attempts to defuse the situation and find a compromise. He suggests that Tommy's human parents live here in the preserve. After all, if they've been traveling all over the world looking for him, that must mean they, or at least the mother, must have some survival skills. And this way, Tommy won't be forced to choose one family over the other. Before the mum can say anything though, Jenny informs them that Team Rocket is attempting to catch the Kangaskhan again. Upon arriving to help the Kangaskhan, Ash sends out Charmander in hopes of using its fire attacks to melt the metal of their machine. Sadly, it does nothing. However, Meowth spots the cap to the machine's fuel line. Pointing it out to Tommy, he tells him to aim his boomerang at it. Tommy's aim is on point, knocking the cap off and allowing Charmander to set the fuel line ablaze. Despite this, the mech is still coming at them. Just as it seems that they are about to be made into roadkill, Tommy's parents come to the rescue just like in canon. When they are revealed to have survived, Tommy's mum explains that they've given Ash's suggestion some thought and decided that staying with Tommy and his herd really is the best option. As Ash and his friends are leaving the preserve, Misty expresses concern about Tommy's two families being able to coexist. Ash reassures her, reminding her that Tommy can talk to Pokemon and Meowth taught himself English, so they'll be able to communicate with enough time. When Tommy and his families come to wave them goodbye, Ash grins. See, they're already learning. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as I try to include in this What If an episode that was never aired outside of Japan. Wish me luck! I'm Rune. See you in the next chapter.